Hello, this is Brian J, and shout out to the LDBC Lions Den boxing community. And big news happened on Tuesday. I'm a little bit late making this video, but big news on Tuesday. Fox announced the Premier Boxing Champions fight schedule from December to April, and I'm happy that these fighters are fighting again. Keith Thurman is fighting again. They're active again, but oh man, this schedule is very disappointing. I mean, most of these fights are mismatches. They feel like they're tune-up fights. That's what it feels like. It feels like most of these fights are tune-up fights. You have the Charlo brothers fighting tune-up fights. You have Keith Thurman fighting a tune-up, and Josecito Lopez. And, you know, Lopez is not that good of a fighter, but he's a warrior. He's got big heart. He's got a lot of heart. But Keith Thurman will most likely make easy work of him. If Keith Thurman loses, I'm gonna laugh. I'm just gonna bust out laughing. I'll laugh about that for the rest of my life. You have Jose fighting Caleb Plant, which is a good fight on paper. Leo Santa Cruz is fighting Flores, who's not. Again, it's a tune-up fight. He's a B-level fighter. And Anthony Durrell has never been that great. He's good. He was good enough to be a champion, but he's never been as good as his brother Andre Durrell. And Andre Durrell hasn't been the same since, you know, he got hit with an illegal punch by Arthur Abraham over 8 years ago on Showtime during the Super 6 Series tournament on Showtime. And Andre Durrell hasn't been the same since. But Anthony Durrell, because he's never really been an elite fighter to me, and he's fighting a guy who's also not that good, not that great either. Yeah, Sean Porter fighting Ugas, and Ugas is also not a great fighter. He's an IBF contender, but I mean, he also doesn't have a great defense, and he has kind of a wide stance. He's very limited in his skill set. I think he's limited in his skill set. I think Sean Porter is going to beat him. So really, the only great fight on here between two great fighters is Errol Spence Jr. versus Mikey Garcia, and sadly, Errol Spence Jr. is just not bigger and better. Errol Spence Jr. is really, really big, man. I saw that footage. I saw those pictures. Errol Spence Jr. looks so big in comparison to Mikey Garcia. It was not even funny, man. It was not even funny. I'm like, I'm not paying for this shit. It's going to be Fox pay-per-view. I'm not paying for that shit. March 16th, I'm not paying for that shit. You know? Unless somebody pays for me, I can get in free somewhere. I mean, Errol Spence Jr. is going to destroy Mikey Garcia. And Mikey Garcia is a great fighter. I mean, you could say it's the best fight, the best in terms of pound for pound. You know, and Mikey Garcia, great fighters have moved up 2 weight classes to fight a big, great fighter or a big, you know, really good fighter. And sometimes the smaller guy wins, but Errol Spence Jr. is a great... He hasn't fought a lot of great fighters, but he passes the eye test. He has a great skill set. I just don't see Mikey Garcia beating him at all, but that's the best fight on paper, and they're putting it on pay-per-view. It should be on Fox. Forget pay-per-view. It should be on Fox. Then you got Lamont Peterson, who's also past his prime, fighting Sergey Lipinets, and Caleb Trox is not that great. Peter Quillen, he sucks. Peter Quillen's been a trashy fighter for years. You got Danny Garcia, who's really good, fighting Adrian Granados, who's a B-level fighter. I mean, Granados has the potential for an upset, but he's not a great fighter. So overall, most of these fights are mismatches, most of these fights are tune-up fights for the A-level fighters. And you have a few B, C-level fighters fighting each other. And then you have one great fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia, which actually, when you really look at it, is a mismatch. I mean, Errol Spence Jr. is going to beat Mikey Garcia, so I'm disappointed in the schedule, but it's not Al Heyman's fault. People are going to blame Al Heyman and say, oh, it's Al Heyman doing mismatches again. Look, this wasn't his fault. We know what it is. Keith Thurman is scared of Errol Spence Jr. Sean Porter is scared of Errol Spence Jr. They didn't want to man up and fight him. They didn't want to take a chance and you know, potentially take an L and dare to be great and unify against Errol Spence Jr. So we're dealing with this shit. This is the shit that we're dealing with. Mikey Garcia, a lightweight, is moving up to fight Errol Spence Jr., making the Charlo brothers look at him like, man, this dude's a badass. Like, I saw the way they were looking at Mikey Garcia, and they're like, dude, this guy's fucking crazy. He's really going to show up. You know, Mikey Garcia is making Keith Thurman look like a bitch, and he's making Sean Porter look like a bitch. And I'm done. Shout out to the LDBC.